Hi, I'm Brian White, filling in for Buck Lavasser. When we think of turkey hunting, we think of spring. But turkeys are for Thanksgiving, not for Easter. Join me for a spring turkey hunt in September. If you were with us last week, you know we spent the day hunting grouse with Dennis Stachewicz of Aspen Thicket Grouse Dogs.
And I've never had to train this dog to retrieve. That's all natural in him too.
We'll visit with Dennis again to get some pointers on training dogs to be successful grouse hunters. We'll also take a look at the recent youth firearm deer hunt. So sit back, put your feet up. It's Monday night and time for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forests thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. Black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Today's show is brought to you by Hiawatha Log Homes, building dreams one home at a time, and Wendrick's Truss, keeping the UP covered since 1975.
When we think of turkey hunting, we think of spring. Indeed, spring turkey hunting is hard to beat. The snow is finally gone, the air is still crisp, but warming up for the approaching summer. By the time fall rolls around, it's grouse, woodcock, ducks, and geese. But what about turkey? After all, we eat turkey at Thanksgiving, not Easter. If you've got a bit of room on your hunting schedule, you might want to try to squeeze in some turkey time.
Have you been dreaming of owning a log home, cottage, or camp? We are Hiawatha Log Homes. proudly serving the UP and satisfied customers since 1983. Our in-house staff of professionals are ready to help you create the perfect log home plan. Visit our website or stop by our model home and meet our staff. From cottages to castles, we can custom design to your specific needs. Hiawatha Log Homes, building dreams.
Curtis and the birds.
Yeah, that too.
Somewhere, I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Yeah, they flew down just like they were supposed to.
That was fun.
Gobbling. The rain started picking up. I thought they were going to quiet up, but they just kept going.
You got some they actually picked
Not very often you're going to hear them gobbling like that in the fall.
I couldn't see it unless I was standing up. See, were you standing up?
Yeah. Normally we do a lot of spring turkey hunting, but permit numbers are down. We've had such a great hatch, we decided to do a fall hunt this year. And Brent came up from Lower Michigan to hunt with us. We had Curtis roosted some birds up here last night, and we got out and gave it a try. It was a bunch of year-and-a-half-old gobblers and a few hens. Normally in the fall we do a lot of splitting up and calling back, but we thought with the gobblers here this morning that we'd have a chance to call them right off the roost. It ended up being, unlike most fall hunts, we're calling a lot of hens and poults back and forth. This morning they came in much more like a spring hunt. You know, there's not a lot of opportunities, although there were 800 tags left over, I believe, for this area this year. But and there's a lot of birds, a lot of surplus birds that it's not going to hurt to take a few this year. Generally, and yesterday we did this with my grandson, found a flock and we split them up, try to scatter them across the trees, get in close, and then call them back using young hen calls. This morning was just a different situation. We didn't want to bust them off the roost and chase them around here, so we set up on them. And I just thought it came in really good, just like a spring hunt, lots of gobbling, which usually on a rainy day you don't get a lot of that in the fall, but a crisp, cold morning, lots of times you get a lot of gobbling. It's no different than spring. So it's a good opportunity to get out and try something different.
It was a really nice hunt for a rainy fall day. I mean, everybody thinks of deer hunting all fall, getting ready for their bow stands and stuff, but this is the opportunity to get out early in the morning and hunt them just like spring turkeys.
Yeah, it was just a great morning. We had just an outstanding hunt. The turkeys were gobbling just like they would in spring, and the only challenge is I think they're more flocked up, and to get them to separate was the real challenge. We had to be patient and wait for them to separate, but these guys did a great job calling them in. We had the decoys, but other than that, it was just similar to a spring hunt, but it was just a fantastic morning and a great time to be out in the woods in Michigan here. So.
Whether you're aiming to put a wild turkey on the Thanksgiving table or just enjoy hunting turkeys, dig your gear back out and hit the woods for some great fall action that very few take advantage of.
Come on, bud.
Have you ever wished you had your own grouse dog? Last week, my son and I had a great day hunting grouse with Dennis Stachewicz of Aspen Thicket Grouse Dogs. Before hitting the woods, Dennis provided some insight into the importance of genetics and the methods he uses to successfully train his German short-hair pointers.
Part of the thing I would do is just kind of show you some of the tools that I use. I use what I'd like to think of a very simple training program. Down, boy. Starts out with I use a check cord, an electronic collar, and a remote bird launcher, the primary tools that I work with. And, I base a lot of my training on
There's an old dog trainer, one of the most famous bird dog trainers by the name of Delmar Smith. He said you need to be able to make a dog do 3 things. It should know its name, you should be able to turn it should come when called, and it ought to be able to stand still. And I firmly believe that if you have good genetics, it's that simple. When you get a puppy, you bring it home, you do some basic obedience with it, you let it grow up, you teach it to trust you. That's the biggest thing, is you have a dog trust you. And if the dog trusts you, it's never going to feel like you're going to, put it in an unsafe or compromising situation, and it makes the training a lot easier. So you have a puppy, and probably the first year of their lives, I don't do a whole lot with a puppy. I teach it its name, and I take it in the woods every day. I think that's extremely important if you're going to, particularly with grouse hunting, if you're going to have a grouse dog, it has to get into the woods, it has to learn to like that cover, and it has to learn how to hunt birds. And it can't do that in the backyard, using planted pigeons and everything all day long. That stuff's for later on, if you actually have to break a dog. Once they start hunting those birds and they get out, and then they kind of don't want to mind you a little bit anymore, and they start ranging out on you a little bit further than you like, and they're kind of getting a little bit independent, then you go to your yard training. You teach them how to come when called. You want to learn how to bend them or turn them in the woods. It's based upon the same principle. Once you do that, you go into that first hunting season, you kill a lot of birds for them, you fire them up. Once they're fired up, and I come back the next year, and the way I break a dog, as I'll show you, is I use one of those remote bird launchers. So I'm going to do this in the yard for demonstration purposes, but normally I would use this remote bird launcher with a bird in it somewhere in a field, in an open area where it's a controlled environment. In other words, you kind of want to hide it. When you're teaching a dog to break him from the chase, you don't want him to be able to smell it, so you want to bring him in from the upwind side. Launch the bird, dog takes off after it, you start with the check cord. I put no pressure on the dog. Once you get him to that point and you do it with not a lot of pressure over time, you're going to get a dog that's going to learn how to stand his birds. And if they're out 100 yards on you and they point a bird, they have to learn to be honest. And by not chasing birds, they learn how to be honest. And they will be out there on point for a very, very long time. Once you take a chase out of the dog, you have like 90% of the training done. They go into the woods, they start hunting birds. If they bump a bird and they don't chase it, they're going to stop and watch it fly away. That's where they're getting to the point of almost maturing. And this process could take up to 3 years. And if it takes 3 years, so be it. I personally don't evaluate dogs until they're 3 years old. You have to let these dogs mature. That right there is called intensity. Can't train for that. That's in the blood. Okay, bud, let's go.
Don't miss the Woodtick Music Festival in Hermansville, Michigan. 4 days of great bluegrass, country, folk, blues, and rock and roll. Over 25 bands. Fun for the entire family. Carry-ins welcome. Kids 12 and under free. Buy your tickets and campsites and find out everything you need to know online at woodtickfestival.com. That's woodtickfestival.com. The Woodtick Music Festival in Hermansville, Michigan.
A lot of that young time when you start doing yard work is kind of just getting a dog to do what you want them to do and be under your control a little bit. And we do that with a check cord. You start out just teaching them to walk with you and be under control on a lead. One of the things when you work with a lead is notice I don't have any pressure on this lead at all. You do it with little sharp jolts, and then the release of the pressure is a reward. And all I'm really teaching them to do is pay attention to me, because that's going to be an important part of our yard training. And again, we would probably do this on year 2. Once we get to working on the whoa command, which is how we teach them to stand still, you tell the dog whoa, and then you make them stand still. There's different ways you can do it. If you're working with a younger dog, you walk them along, okay? You tell them whoa, and you grab them right there. The minute you say that command whoa, that dog should stand still. And I can do that kind of stuff with puppies from the day you bring them home. And the thing is, when you're doing it with a younger dog, you just want to be very gentle about it. Very nice. Nothing should have any pressure until a dog is 2 or 3 years old. You have a check cord on the dog, pans are come. Right? A lot of times when you work with a young dog, they'll be a little resistant to do that. All you do is give them a little tap, you want them to come to you. You don't want to drag the dog to you. If you have to drag the dog to you, it becomes a fight, and it's all about pressure again. Tap, come, tap, come. Get them to come to you. And when they're younger and they're puppies, you can do that early. You just clap your hands, use a little treats here and there, and then get away from the treats. And you just work on these things in the yard quite a bit. Now in the more advanced stages of stuff, they get a little bit older. Then you overlay the stimulation collar for these kind of things. It's important, first off, when you start with that stimulation collar, you want to make sure you condition them to it properly. Make them learn that turning that stimulation off in response to a command. To get in more detail about it, we like to have dogs doing things going away from us when we use that collar at first. One of the ways we do it is the kennel command. You put the stimulation collar on the dog. As the dog knows the command kennel to go into his kennel, you turn the stimulation on the lowest level that he can feel it. Tell him kennel, he goes in. You turn the stimulation off. You do those repetitions a number of times, and the dog learns that he turns stimulation off by obeying a command. Then you just go through the yard work, and you do the same thing for with the electronic collar. You put it around the dog's neck. You make sure he's comfortable with the command you're giving. Get him out there at the end of the check cord. You turn that stimulation on. You tell him to come. Tap it a few times. He comes to you. You turn off the stimulation. If you're in the woods and you want to be able to turn a dog, I use the hup command. You use the hup command with a little stimulation as long as he knows that command in the yard. And one of the ways we train that, hup, 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 hup. It may not seem like we're doing a whole lot with that in the yard because he's only 4 feet in front of us, but that translates when he's 100 yards out. You say that hup command or blow that whistle and hit that e-collar, he should be able to turn. And then you work to the whoa command. I actually like to use the electronic stimulation collar around the waist at first, because that stimulation, when I'm doing the whoa command and working with birds, being on the rear end, the bird's in front of him, it's close to his head. If you make a mistake, you'd rather have him have the stimulation back here because he or she would not associate that with the bird. I went through it really fast, and it sounds like it may be really intimidating, but you have to remember the things that I just went through should take you 2 years to do. You should work at one thing at a time. One thing should probably take you at least a month, if not a month and a half to 2 months to work on that, because you're going to take your time and you're only going to do it 10 minutes a day. That's the important thing. Don't burn these dogs out. And while you're doing it, mix in some fun. Work one day in the yard for 10-15 minutes on the command. Work on proofing the dog. Time permits the next day, and if it's not quiet period and you can run dogs in the woods, take them in the woods and go look for grouse. Let them have fun, you know. Keep doing that off and on. If you time that stuff out, like I had just mentioned, the first year will really be a dog's name and teaching it when to come when called, and a lot of time in the woods. And then the second season, you get into the whoa and the other stuff and breaking it. And then I think you'll be quite surprised. Daddy girl. Yeah, you are. That's your bird, girl. You're a first grouse. First grouse. Yeah. Good job, puppy.
This portion of today's show brought to you by Superior Welding and Manufacturing, a proud supporter of the outdoors.
September 22nd and 23rd marked the weekend of the special youth firearm deer season. I spoke to several parents who spent the weekend in the woods hunting with their sons and daughters. And talking with each of them, I could see in their faces that they got just as much out of it as their children. So in the end, I'm not really sure who took who hunting. And it really doesn't matter. I received some footage shot by Brant, the gentleman who shot the turkey earlier in the show, of a hunt involving Dean Hulse, one of the turkey callers, and his grandson Micah Hulse. As most of you who were hunting that day know, the wind made the deer a bit jittery, And Micah teaches us a good lesson about harvesting a doe when shooting the right buck is just not in the cards. I met up with another lucky hunter with his first buck.
We first saw him, there's this little dip. We could only see his horns pop up like every 5 minutes. We saw him for 30 minutes, then he left for like an hour. There's 6 pointers, spike horns, fork horns, does. And then when we were about to give up, he just comes in. The shot was like 135. I was nervous, yeah. My dad thought I missed.
Many of us recall our childhood days following Dad around in deer season or sneaking up on a trout stream with a trusty Zebco 202 in hand. Have you ever wondered, would we hunt like we hunt or fish like we fish today if not for that initial taste of nature? Sometime, somewhere, somebody took the time to expose us to the great outdoors. Take a kid with you in the woods. Take them with you when you go scouting. Show them what you know. Get them to leave behind the cell phone for a day. Who knows, they might just forget all about it for a while. The future of hunting rests on their shoulders, and it's our responsibility as adults to point them in the right direction, to get them interested. I think in the UP, hunting and fishing is kind of automatic. It's in our genetics. We're born with the desire to be in the outdoors. Our kids just need a jump start, a slight push in the right direction.
Hope I get the buck, the big one.
Pick a day this week and take a kid in the woods. Doesn't even have to be hunting. Just head for the woods, and the rest is automatic. Well, that's our show. Thanks for watching. I'll leave you today with the sights of September in the Upper Peninsula.